so much for having me. What a delight to work with them, and I'm honored to be here. And I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I feel so supported, and it's just a delight to meet you all and to see some familiar faces too. So I want to just briefly talk about my art and my new collection. My art practice helps me stay present in my life, and I really love that about it. It helps me, not just in the studio when I'm making art, although that is true, but when I go out into the world, it helps me to look at the world through like Kathy goggles, and to hear a little voice in my head asking me, what do you notice? You know, what do you think is important? Why do you like that? And so it really tunes me into my environment more than I've ever been, and this keeps increasing over time, more and more. And so, for example, when I take my daily hikes, I'm seeing mushrooms and lichen and capturing shapes and getting very excited about that. Or when I see trash, like when I saw this plastic wrap and it was laying there on the floor, and I thought, look at this, it was making this wonderful shape, and I thought, that's coming with me on Friday, because we're gonna print with that. Or bark. In the summer, these drop off the trees, and I go crazy. My poor husband, we're walking along, and I'm like, wait, I'm picking them up, because then I can change, I make these masks out of them, and they're so much fun to print with. There was one day we were walking, and I kept picking them up, and I had so many, and it was not gonna work, so we put them into this pile, and then the whole walk, we had to do a loop around this park, and I kept thinking, oh no, what about my bark? Like,
what if somebody steals my bark?
What if somebody steals it? And David really kindly was like, nobody else wants that bark. And I was like, really? How can you know? He's like, trust me, nobody else cares. But I mean, it helps me to care. It helps me to tap into myself and what I care about, right? I have algorithms all day telling me, you should like this, you probably like this, you know, look at this. And it's good to break away from that and be like, what do I like? You know, what do I care about? What's important to me, whether nobody else likes it or not? And then it also helps me to hold it up to others and be like, look how cool this is. This is amazing. And put it in a piece of art, and people can appreciate what is, I think, truly amazing. And then these things can become recurring motifs in my art. For example, we were in the Arctic and we saw some sea ice, and some of them looked like monsters, and it was really cool. This one in particular, I made a mask out of it, and also a template, and this guy shows up in like a bunch of these pieces. I love this, I don't know why. And the thing that's magical about this is that piece of ice was bonking against his neighbors and melting, and you know, he didn't look the same probably even 24 hours later, but in my art and in my memory, he always stays sort of the same. It brings me back to that memory, and it just becomes, I don't know, it's made this one encounter very special, and I like that. I've been at the doctor's office, and they give you these little booties, and they say, oh, just put them in the trash, and I'm like, oh no, you're kidding me, right? Because you can do some really cool art with them, and they end up kind of like this. And there is one piece, I'm not sure where it is right now, but it looks like this crazy landscape with like a monster underground, and it's one of these. So that's a lot of fun to go out like that. And David and I were we were in Borneo in October, and we were at this park, and they were going to be putting food out on a platform for orangutans. And as we were walking there, there was this long fence with some lichen on it, and the lichen looked just like this series that I was working on. It was back in my studio, and this lichen really reminded me of that I was working on, and I was so excited, and I kept looking at it, and I was taking pictures, and everybody in the tour, you know, kept going. They were looking, and I couldn't stop. And David came back, and he was like, everybody's looking at the orangutans. They're eating. And I said, I can't leave this fence. This is, look.
So we don't go to Borneo anymore, we just find a fence here.
They don't have that here. I mean, it just was so remarkable, and it was really nice that he was kind of like, I get it. And, whereas I think a lot of spouses would have been like, we came halfway across the world and you're taking pictures of a fence. And we saw plenty of orangutans. I mean, it's not the only thing I did there, but again, to really appreciate it helps to honor myself and love myself and deepen my relationship with myself. And so I love that. That's what art is kind of all about for me. And so speaking of the new series, I want to tell you that this new series of collages and the prints that went into them represent a revelation that I had. All of my previous work, like you'll see here on the left side, was about bright, bright colors. Like the brighter the better. I loved, and I still do love bright colors, but I always thought that neutral art and sort of the neutral aesthetic was boring. And then I did some experimenting with a lot of printing with grays and other neutrals, really soft, and I realized they weren't boring at all. They were actually fascinating, and you could get really rich details and depths, and I just went into this rabbit hole and printed like crazy all of these different neutral prints. So I had stacks and stacks of them, and I thought, okay, now let me try to collage with them. And the first collages in that series were only neutrals. For example, like the one in the center top, and then that small one, you can see a few of them that were just sort of all neutral. And I really liked it. I was surprised. They seemed so peaceful and yet exciting. And so, again, I was like getting excited and surprising myself at what I was learning about what was exciting to me. And so then I also started adding more color to some and experimented with that. And what I learned was the neutrals mixed with color really shine a spotlight on the colors and helped me at least to appreciate the colors even more. And so I got very excited with that, and I'm going to keep pursuing that. And then the other thing that I really like about this series is one of the recurring themes. I mean, you see a lot of my normal recurring themes, but one of them is swirls. You'll see swirls that have been added by a multitude of techniques. Some of them have been created by printing. Some have been added before printing by mark making with a pen or pencil or other technique. And some have been added after the collage is complete with house paint. And I like how all of these swirls are in conversation with each other. Some of them are really hard to see, some are kind of more in your face, but it adds cohesion, and it makes a fun, unified conversation, and it lets you look up close and see, where are they connecting, what are they all saying. So I'm very pleased with this collection, and I plan to keep working on it, make new pieces, make bigger pieces, and keep playing with it and see where it goes. So I'm very excited to do that, and next I'm going to show you a little bit about my process, and as I do that, I want you to feel free to ask me any questions about what I'm doing or about my work or anything that I just talked about, and let's have fun